The following broadcast is an exclusive radio presentation of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Network. From Indianapolis, Indiana, scene of the world's greatest race course, this is Sid Collins saying welcome to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This racetrack has been the scene of some of the most spectacular, most thrilling, some of the saddest, and some of the most glorious moments in the entire world of sport.
The Indianapolis 500 is a worldwide iconic auto racing event in so many ways. The history, the prestige, and the memorable racing moments on track. With those iconic moments, those iconic Indy 500 moments would not be as iconic without the announcers who call the races, whether it's on TV, public addresses, or on track from IMS radio. On the IMS radio side, there has been 8 chief announcers who are the voices of the Indianapolis 500. On the 72nd episode of Ian's Racing Stories, we're going to be going over Sid Collins, a Hoosier who shaped up the Indy 500 on radio between the early 1950s to the mid-1970s. While telling stories of 500 miles of racing in Speedway, Indiana, he was also facing some personal dark demons and other personal troubles with a tragic ending. With that being said, let's begin. Sidney Can Jr., aka Sid Collins, was a Hoosier who was born into a Jewish family at Indianapolis, Indiana on July 17, 1922. As a child, Sid worked for his family's neighborhood store, putting pin tickets on items and unloading stocks. During his time in high school, Sid Collins went to the Indianapolis Public School 66 for grade school. In high school, he attended Shortridge High School. During his time in high school, he could not play any major sports due to him being too little, and the high school did not have any minor sports. However, Sid Collins would join the newspaper staff for the Daily Echo as a Wednesday editor, which would be the first American school to have daily news. After graduating from high school, he would attend Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana to study business. One of the classes he took was broadcasting class, and he loved it. He would even become moderator of Indiana University's Editorial of the Air, which was a Sunday morning program. Unfortunately, during his live broadcast, he was interviewing several JROTC officers. One of the interviewees died on air due to a heart attack. The listeners who listened to the show during that episode did not know what happened. Despite that, the broadcasting kept growing, and so would Sid's enthusiasm for broadcasting. While attending a fraternity dance, news broke out about an attack on Pearl Harbor. Sid Collins would train at Camp Atterbury's on Sundays while being a part of Indiana University's Speed Up program. His time in Indiana University was an active one. In terms of media, he was a studio director. In terms of business, since he wanted to study business, he was the business manager of the yearbook. He has managed a swim team and played golf. Keeping the university part brief, Sid would graduate from Indiana University in 1943, a month early, with a Bachelor of Science degree. After graduating, Sid Collins was serving the U.S. Army and was in 8 different locations for training in Pennsylvania and New York, doing supply work in England, being a legal affairs officer in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. He would be sent back to Indiana as a recruiter officer. After serving in the Army during World War II, Sid Collins would be discharged in March of 1946. 3 months after being discharged from the Army, his real career would begin in Kokomo, Indiana for WKMO, which was changed to WIOJ, but I believe it is currently named WIOU. I'm not really sure, guys. I live in Florida. Please forgive me. So to the Hoosiers that are watching this episode or listening, correct me if I'm wrong about this. Thank you. 1 year after working for WKMO, he was offered a role to sell advertising and promoted to announcers for WIBC, which is a powerful station. He would host PM Party. During his time in WIBC, 4 of the most popular and successful radio shows were Captain Sid's Treasure Hunt, Stairway to Stardom, Movie Menu, and Speedway Gossip. He would also cover over 10,000 sports programs. After a year working for WIBC, Sid Collins would get the job at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 1948 to become track announcer, working in the South Turn. After 2 years of working in the South Turn of the track at Turn 1, Sid Collins would have the opportunity to be a radio announcer at Indianapolis Motor Speedway when Bill Slater was ill for the 1950 Indy 500 as standby. However, on the last minute, Bill Slater did show up to call the race, but Slater was thoughtful enough to have Sid as co-anchor for the race. While Sid was on a different role at Indy, Wilbur Shaw and Tony Holman saw some potential in him. Sid Collins was still doing some WIBC work as an account executive. He would also become Indiana's top salesman as well during his time in that station. Coming to the 1952 Indianapolis 500, Sid Collins would get an opportunity of a lifetime and would get hired as chief announcer for the IMS radio network's Voice of the 500. The 1952 Indianapolis 500 would be different in terms of radio coverage. Instead of a 5-minute rundown each hour from the race on radio, the Indy 500 will be flag to flag on radio. Sid Collins wrote letters to carry the full coverage of the race. Thankfully, the first year of covering the Indianapolis 500 flag to flag started to become a thing. Despite history being made, only 26 stations participated in the race. Despite the disappointing numbers, the numbers would increase to 110 stations in 1953 to thousands and thousands and thousands of stations as time went on. During his time covering the Indianapolis 500, Sid Collins called the races to the listeners like he was telling a 500-mile-long story with iconic moments and excitement as more people listened into the greatest spectacle in racing. Despite exciting and amazing moments, Sid Collins would have to deal with some tragedy at Indy. During his time calling the Indy 500, he would have to call some tragic and disastrous moments. On the 1955 Indianapolis 500, tragedy would strike on the back straightaway.
1955 also presented Sid with his first crisis situation, a true test for any broadcaster.
The caution light is out indicating trouble. Let's go to the back stretch and Jack Shapiro.
Bill Vukovich evidently going to the outside to miss the trouble. Went over the wall, and that car is still burning over there.
Why don't you drop the mic for a second, go check, and come call us back when you see those numbers. We won't call you until you get back.
I'll check the car that is burning. I certainly will, Sid.
In the midst of all the chaos, Sid took control of the situation live and unscripted. Sid stayed calm and kept listeners informed, even when the worst news of all filtered to the booth.
Here, we have never had to make such an announcement, and we're most regretful. Bill Vukovich, three-time winner of the 500-mile race, almost, trying for his third consecutive today, trapped in his car in the backstretch, was injured fatally.
While avoiding some traffic, two-time Indy 500 reigning champion Bill Vukovich was looking to become the first driver to win 3 Indianapolis 500 races in a row. But then on lap 57, Bill Vukovich was avoiding a 3-car crash, which took place ahead of him. He'd have 6 feet to avoid the wreck, but one of the spinning cars got that space, and Vukovich would be part of it, as his car went out of the track, flipping and burning. The Mad Rusher would lose his life at the age of 36 due to a skull fracture. Before I continue, if you want to know more about the story of the Mad Russian, back in 2021, I made an episode of Racing Stories about Bill Vukovich featuring Indy fanatics. If you guys want to check out that episode, the link will be in the description below. Another tragic moment took place in the 1964 Indianapolis 500.
There has been a spectacular crash, almost at the head of the main stretch. There's so much fire and so much smoke, I am unable to see any car at all.
On lap 2, a huge fireball crash took place involving 7 cars, but unfortunately, Eddie Sachs and Dave McDonough would both lose their lives. After the accident, Sid Collins will tell the world the tragic news and would make an eulogy on Eddie Sachs.
Some men try to conquer life in a number of ways. These days of our outer space attempts, some men try to conquer the universe. Race drivers are courageous men who try to conquer life and death, and they calculate their risks. And in our talking with them over the years, I think we know their inner thoughts in regard to racing. They take it as a part of living. It is God's will, I'm sure, and we must accept that. We're all speeding toward death at the rate of 60 minutes every hour. The only difference is that we don't know how to speed faster, and Eddie Sachs did. And so since death has 1,000 or more doors, Eddie Sachs exits this earth in a race car.
After the eulogy, sorry if I can't pronounce that right, Sid Collins would receive 30,000 letters asking for copies, thinking he had an eulogy for any drivers if they died, which is not the case, but due to his talents, years of work, and thinking from his head, His delivery was poetic. Throughout the years of calling each Indy 500, the number of listeners tuned in and grew, and more iconic moments took place. I tried to find those iconic moments called by Sid Collins, but they're honestly just minimal. So let's go over the ones that I can find. In the 1966 Indy 500, the race started off with a big crash.
And the golden anniversary 500-mile race is on. The number one turn and Mike Ahern.
And here they come into the number one turn, accelerating out of the pack and taking the lead. Well, it's either at...
We have an accident on the main stretch, Mike. Hold it. We have a terrible accident on the main stretch.
Later in the race, Lloyd Ruby was dominating the race by leading 68 laps until he suffered an oil leak due to a broken bolt and cam stud issue on lap 139, finishing 11th. Jackie Stewart was another contender for the race by leading 40 laps, but with 10 laps to go, Jackie Stewart would suffer a pump issue. Graham Hill would take the lead away for the final 10 laps of the race. Despite a scoring error USAC moment, Sid Collins would call Graham Hill, who was about to become another British driver to win the Indianapolis 500 during the British invasion.
The white flag is out. The card is being held. And there's the white flag for Graham Hill in the American Red Ball Special. Pick him up on turn number one, Mike Ahern.
And here he is in turn number one. Graham Hill coming around like he's been traveling this turn all afternoon, where he was on tracks smoothly into the short chute, turn number two, and Howdy Bell.
And we picked him up now. We sight Graham Hill, former world driving champion. There he goes through turn two as he heads up the backstretch with apparently just one lap to go. Doug Zink.
All right, thank you, Howdy. And here he comes past the halfway point on the backstretch, running all alone. Three here, and Ron Carroll.
And I pick him up, Doug. Here he comes into turn number three. He passes me right now. Now out of number three into the short chute. And he'll be coming over to you, Jim Shelton.
Ronnie's right here. Handsome man with a beautiful car. Graham Hill in 24. Number 24, white, red trim with oil smudges and dollar signs. And here's Sid Collins.
Here he comes down the main stretch, and there's the checkered flag for Graham Hill, winner of the Golden Anniversary Indianapolis 500-mile race. Car number 24, the American Red Ball Special.
In 1969, Mario Andretti suffered a fiery crash during a practice session for the Indy 500. He did suffer some burns, and due to the burns, Aldo Andretti, Mario's twin brother, would be part of the Indy 500 front row grid. If you ever wanted to know more about Aldo Andretti, I made a Racing Stories episode about Aldo Andretti back in 2022. Episode 33 of the series about Aldo Andretti will be in the description below. As for Mario, he dominated the race by leading 116 laps. Sid Collins and Len Sutton, who finished second in the 1962 Indy 500, who was also on the Drive Expert role, broadcasted Mario's first Indy 500 win to 950 affiliates, including the American Forces Network, where the troops in Vietnam listened to the race on radio.
And here's the checkered flag. Pat Ledan holds it and waves it for Mario Andretti, winner of the 1969 500-mile race.
Another Indy 500 race I found from IMS Radio during the Sid Collins era was the 1973 Indy 500. A lot of fans say it was the worst Indy 500 race ever. 6 years ago, I considered it as a tragic month of May on my 9th episode of Racing Stories. I will keep the 1973 Indy 500 race brief in this episode. So 1973 started off with a tragic loss of Art Pollard, who suffered a fatal crash during the early parts of month of May on pole day. Johnny Rutherford attempted to reach 200 miles per hour for the race. On race day, weather played a factor which delayed the race for 4 hours. After a 4-hour wait, Sid Collins would call the start of the race, but it would be disastrous.
And here to start this race, to call the start is the voice of the 500, Sid Collins. Now down the main stretch for the world's fastest flying start they come. The green flag is waved, and the 1973 Indianapolis 500-mile race is on. Turn number one, Mike Ahern.
Yes, Sid, what a battle for the lead. It's Bobby Unser shutting off Johnny Rutherford at the turn. Then it's Mark Donahue and Mario Andretti. Unser leads turn two and Howdy Bell.
We have a tremendous crash here going to the number one turn in the back of the pack, Mike. We'll take it back here once again. The red flag is out. The red flag is out. We'll not try to guess how many cars. Near the very back of the pack, something happened. We see tire tracks going over toward the wall, pieces of race cars. A big flame came out on one car, was extinguished right away, and the race has been stopped.
After waiting for 2 more days due to rain and heated pre-race meetings, the race was back underway. Business as usual, but on lap 57, tragedy would strike.
The Norris Eagle number 35 is not. Jim McElreath, now with helmet off, is standing alongside. He hasn't deserted the car yet. They're looking it over. No decision has yet been made, but he's out of the cockpit, unstrapped, standing by it. Mark Donohue, meanwhile, is going very, very slowly, and I think you may have...
We have a crash on the fourth turn. Jim, can you see it? The yellow's out. Jim Shelton.
It was a violent crash with much flame, but it's way down the track from me, Sid. I cannot see really who it is.
The red flag is out and the race is being stopped. The red flag is out and the race is being stopped. So we'll have to, there's a tremendous flame in the car. Tremendous flame covering the racetrack all the way across. John DeCamp, closest to on the other end of our booth with his glasses. And unfortunately, after 59 laps, after a beautiful start and a smooth running race, it is being stopped, has been stopped. And we have fire all the way across. And a man was hit here by an official fire truck. He's directly in front of us, trying to go up the pit area, around the track. And a man was hit. We're not going to try to decide who it was as yet, in a pit uniform. And we have a great amount of confusion out here in the pit area, waiting for a doctor to arrive. For a pit man, a man in a driver's uniform, but it may be a man from the pit area going out. The ambulance is going up, and now arriving within 1 minute of the man in the pit area. Well, this has been one of the most disastrous months of May all the way around. Getting the race underway, getting it started, having a first lap accident yesterday, on Monday. Unable to start yesterday because of bad weather. Now we've had a man in the pit being hit by an official fire truck, and we have fire being put out as the race is stopped in the north end. So, John, if you can, you've seen, if you can pick up your microphone and give us any report you have, but we of course strive for accuracy. We'll take our time and be certain that we stay calm.
After the scary crash and tragic accident for Sweet Savage and Patrick Racing team member Armando Turan for Graham McKay's team, the race went back underway. However, weather once again returned. After 133 laps, the race is over.
The fence has not been open for the car to be rolled up. In fact, the STP car is all the way down some 50, 70 yards in their pit area, but they're now opening it up. And Andy Granatelli, it looks like, gosh, this couldn't happen again. I couldn't lose now, could I? As has happened in the past to him. I think the race is called now. Marlon Fengley, chief steward, says it is the end of the race. So there's something else new this time, Don, you can put in the file. We had the end of the race and no checkered flag was even waved.
After all the unfortunate moments from the race, everybody just wanted to go home and move on from the next race. Sid Collins stated the 1973 Indy 500 was the worst Indy 500 race due to the rain, crashes, and the deaths. By the time it was 1976, the number of radio listeners grew to the estimation of 100 million on 1,200 stations. The 1976 Indy 500 was another 500-mile race in Indiana in the books, while Johnny Rutherford and number 2 McLaren Offenhauser team were celebrating the rain-shortened win, while 350,000 fans were leaving the stands and the teams were packing for the next race and the next Indy 500 mile for in 1977. Sid Collins recalls 29th Indy 500 send-off.
So now the 60th running of the 500 here is now history. Since 1911, the hypnotic effect of speed upon driver and spectator alike has never dimmed. The run from the green flag to the checkered and on to victory lane here is a pursuit only one man in the world can accomplish once a year. Today, once again, Johnny Rutherford etched his name and his achievement upon the granite of time. He reigns supreme as a champion of the sport of auto racing this day and forevermore. The massive crowd of more than 350,000 has threaded its way toward the exit gates as their eyes have taken a final sweep over the track before departing. For some, this has been a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Others will come back, but in every case, it's always difficult to relinquish one's grasp on the pulsating emotion that is the 500. And at this microphone, we share that reaction at having to say goodbye to you across the many miles that separate us. But another icy Indiana winter will come and go, and before we know it, springtime returns. It will be May, and the roar of engines will once again breathe life into the lazy Hoosier sky and bring us back together. God willing, I'll be here to greet you for this annual reunion through our mutual love of auto racing and the Indianapolis 500. And now this final thought for our winner. Enthusiasm with wisdom will carry a man further than any amount of intellect without it. The men who have most powerfully influenced the world have not been so much men of genius as they have been men of strong conviction, with an enduring capacity for work, coupled with enthusiasm and determination. Johnny Rutherford showed these qualities today in becoming victorious over the Indianapolis 500. So until next May, this is Sid Collins, the voice of the 500, wishing you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where in the world you are right now. We're here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the crossroads of America. Goodbye. This is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Network.
After the call, everybody was expecting Sid Collins would return to Indy to call his 30th Indy 500 race on radio, a milestone to celebrate. Unfortunately, the public did not know that Sid was not only dealing with health issues, but personal demons. May 1977. The month of May arrived. The Indianapolis 500 was less than a month away and excitement was high. But on the morning of May 2nd, 1977, Russ Arnold, who was the director of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway radio network, was calling Sid Collins. Collins was talking in a very depressed tone. Russ Arnold was worried for the worst outcome for Sid. He stayed on the phone with Sid until Ray Trotta, a close friend, arrived to bring Sid's favorite spaghetti from a restaurant called Macri's Italian Village. Around noon, Paul Page would pull up to Sid's apartment along with the individual named Henry. They knocked the door. No response, only silence. The door was unlocked. Sid's name was called, but no response. They came upstairs, and they saw the imaginable in the worst news in his bedroom. Sid Collins was found hanging in a closet from a necktie wrapped around the closet rod. Henry put his body down, and Paul called an ambulance. Unfortunately, it was too late. Sid Collins was dead after ending it all. But why? How did the demons get to a legendary reporter and icon in the Hoosier State? According to Paul Page's Hello on Paul Page, It's Race Day in Indianapolis book, on the 7th chapter named A Heartbreaking Succession, between pages 97 and 100, the book went on about Sid Collins having health issues and was ill. He had neck surgery and had problems with his foot. Sid would even lose his balance to the point he needed assistance walking down the stairs while having walking distinct limped. He'd used a cane, but hide it away from everyone during the USAC Awards. In April 1977, Sid Collins would go to the Mayo Clinic for the second time, seeing an old friend who was a neurologist. He was told that he had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. His body was weakened by the disease and wasted all the muscles to the point he was paralyzed. There was sadly no cure, and it was terminal. Unfortunately, that was one of the reasons why Sid was suicidal. Another thing was that Sid had no family. He had no relationship. Sid eyed on a lady in a romantic way, but he'd waited too long to make a move, and the lady ended up marrying somebody else. Sid Collins auditioned for roles in New York City. His bosses at WIBC convinced Sid to stay at Indianapolis, moving into selling advertising. The financial success was there along with his fame as the voice, but he regretted the decision and still pleaded with the Dina show for her own talk show. The day before his suicide, Sid Collins talked about suicide and meant it. Paul Page brought up the annual network breakfast, which was 2 days away. Sid Collins was also suggested to move out of the apartment to move into a nursing home. Surprisingly, he agreed. He would ask Paul and Henry to come back the next day to tour a couple of options. Paul Page wrote that it was a sigh of relief, but it was a lie. Before Sid ended his own life, he recorded his 11-minute suicide note on a tape recorder and wanted it to be heard at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but the request was denied. The first 8 minutes of his suicide note was him talking about his 2-year battle with ALS. He also spoke about how proud he would have been to call his 30th Indianapolis 500. On the final 3 minutes of the recording, he read the entire 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes from the Bible. Forgive me if I pronounce that wrong. He read the quote saying, "There is a time for everything, a time to be born and a time to die." He would end the note as, "My time has come." Sid Collins was 54 years old. After the death of Sid Collins, the man who would take over Sid's role was Paul Page. Sid Collins mentored Paul before Paul made it big. Throughout his entire career, Sid Collins was a legend behind a neck brace mic, whether it was radio in the studio or radio at the greatest spectacle in racing, telling stories for 500 miles to numbers of listeners. Sid Collins knew how to paint pictures with words. He knew what to say. He was a vibrant speaker. He did his job poetically. Sid Collins accomplished a lot of contributions and awards as a journalist and a master of ceremonies. When it comes to racing awards, Sid Collins received 9 American Auto Racing Writers and Broadcasters Association Awards as the best racing broadcaster. He would be introduced into the Indiana Journalism Hall of Fame in 1979, Motorsports Hall of Fame in 2011, and was inducted into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame in 2022. Sid Collins was a legendary Hoosier behind the mic on radio with talent, success, and fame. However, Sid Collins was secretly fighting against demons while dealing with his declined health. Despite being a legend, he lived a life of regrets and what could have been. After dealing with demons and pain, unfortunately, he ended his own life before his 30th Indy 500 call. Despite the unfortunate death, Sid Collins continues to be a thought in people's mind for race fans and Hoosiers, and remembered as the man who painted pictures for 500 miles and changed radio broadcasting forever. May his legacy continue to be remembered as life goes on, and may we never forget his accomplishments at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and various radio stations. Before I end this episode, I want to say that you guys are loved. There are people who truly care about you, whether it's family or friends. If you or a loved one is dealing with suicidal thoughts, call 1-800-273-TALK. That is 1-800-273-8255. This will conclude the 72nd episode of Ian's Racing Stories. I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this episode. My name is Ian, and I talk about racing and tell stories about the world of auto racing. Signing off. Goodbye, everybody.
Each year at the sign-off of our broadcast, it has become customary to recite a poem or a serious bit of philosophy to salute the 500-mile race winner. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you'd like to win, but you think you can't, it's almost a cinch. You won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out in the world we find success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in your state of mind. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. But sooner or later, the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. So until next May, this is Sid Collins, the voice of the 500, wishing you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where in the world you are right now. We're here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, at the crossroads of America. Goodbye.